Okay, this is a quick demo of ESRI's ArcGIS Business Analyst web app. We are looking at the web app kind of main launch page interface right here. Kind of your first move is going to be to create a new project. It takes a moment to load, so I've already got an example for us to look at. I just wanted to point out that I'm actually running the trial version right now, so if anyone is interested in taking another look at this tool more closely or exploring with their GIS team, there is a free trial version available to look at. Okay, so jumping in into a project page, one of the first things that we're going to want to do is define our area. I think the most helpful thing for the source control inventory will be to select by geography. You can grab just your specific jurisdiction. And then you've got a couple different options. You can just go straight to it and search. You can select it from the map, or I'll show you select from the full list. They have scale options here to start with, whether you're looking for county, zip code. I'm going to jump down here to cities and towns. And then we can search Washington State. And as you can see, we've got just kind of all kinds of cities and towns. Everything is preloaded in here. I'm going to jump to Maple Valley. Okay, so as you can see, as soon as I click on it, yeah, I mean, my map was already in this location, but it'll zoom here and we've got our city of Maple Valley boundary set. So we can hit next. Then the app is going to ask us what we'd like to do next. I'm going to go ahead and click done. I do want to show you the two standard report options available. If you click here and go to reports, it'll ask you what report to run. As you can see, there are a ton of options for different demographic reports and all sorts of stuff that we don't really need. If you type in business, your two options are going to be business locator and business summary. So if you click one of those, you can run it as a PDF or Excel file. You can hit run report and that will auto generate. And I'm going to go ahead and show you what that looks like. Okay, so this is going to be the business summary, mostly useful just for high level, perhaps planning if you want to understand like kind of what types of industries kind of are the most businesses and the most employees in your area. This is going to be really high level, not as useful for our inventory, but just want to show you that standard report. The other standard report is the business locator. This is getting closer to what we're interested in. This is going to give you an Excel file or PDF output with a big list of all your businesses, name, address, basic information, number of employees, and sales. Though, as you can see, the Excel format here is not the friendliest for generating a clean list. So I wanted to show you those two standard reports, but I don't think those are actually going to be our best tools for the inventory. And just really quickly jumping back, when you do run reports, they will show up here under reports. They'll kind of auto-generate. Mine aren't doing that since I ran these previously, but this is where you'll go to find them after you hit that button. Okay, so jumping back in, we're like, okay, so what shall we do next if we do want to get started on our source control inventory? And the next step for that would be to go here to create maps. And we have this business and facility search tool, which this is definitely going to be our main and best functionality for getting rolling with the source control inventory. So as you can see, when you launch that tool, this tab over here will come up and you have a couple different options. You can look for a specific business or you can search by category. For example, if we were looking at automotive or we wanted food and restaurants, um, you can select a certain category there. But what I'm actually going to do is go to more options here. This lets you switch where instead of searching by category, you can search by code. And they've got the NAICS or SIC codes configured in here. If you did want to search for a specific business type. But what we're going to jump to is the Show All Businesses button. As you can see, it is up to 5,000, so there might be a limitation on this for larger or more dense, kind of dense commercial jurisdictions. You might have to do some kind of some batch exports by different categories if you're exceeding this value. And then for search extent, the default is current map extent, but we'll actually want to switch that and just go straight to our jurisdiction. And then the data source listed down here is data axle. That is going to be the default. Um, this kind of is a nationwide business database. And it's also updated quarterly in this web app interface. So I think this is really useful source. There is an alternative here, though I don't have a ton of extra information on differences between kind of the default or safe graph. But just so that you know that that is there, we can hit go. Okay, so this is our initial output, and as you can see, we've got all sorts of sorting capabilities here by industry description, but right now everything is selected. It will appear on the map in these clusters, so you'll notice that they'll change if you zoom in because they are kind of clustered and collapsing into points. And then we know we can pick a specific business. I'm not quite sure what that one is. Maybe we'll grab one over here. So I clicked here on this cluster and it's telling me that in this area that the 5 businesses here are Black Diamond Towing, Life Safer Ignition Interlock, and we'll just give you that list. And of course, if you zoom in closer, you can see their individual locations. Now to get this into an usable inventory, there's a couple things. One option is export to Excel. I do want to point out this little info button here that exporting to Excel does use credits. So that's something to be aware of for your ArcGIS Online account management and your GIS team. Typically, this type of export wouldn't use an extraordinary amount of credits. So I think that should be reasonable, but just something to be aware of before you launch a bunch of reports. And so when you hit this button, our auto export is going to be this here, which I already exported one just to show you. Okay. Here is that Excel output. So as you can see, it is a much cleaner, nicer format. We've got name, address, the NAICS and SIC codes are in here, and then some of this other information like number of employees, sales volume. So a lot of different stuff that you can use here in a nice, clean list. One thing to remember is even though this database is pretty robust, it's still not perfect. It's still going to require some scrubbing. But one place you might be able to start is, some of these businesses have zero recorded sales or zero employees, which doesn't necessarily mean that they're not real businesses, but might just be something to filter and check early on for trying to remove some of the businesses. And also, I haven't done any, filtering. You could also pre-filter out NAICS codes or SIC codes that aren't going to be relevant in this list. But yeah, so we're definitely still going to need to do some cleanup. The next thing that you can do is kind of explore these buttons over here. I guess, one thing is that you can change the base map here if you want to take a look at imagery or other base maps is an option. And then I think the really important function is going to be, okay, this one here, this little export button, share map to ArcGIS. This is kind of going to be your next step if you're wanting to use this data in other apps or get it downloaded to desktop. Um, So I will show you what that looks like. And then of course you can kind of generate like a PDF image just of this map if you're interested in. There's also kind of just some other features in here that maybe aren't as applicable, but interesting to check out. So let me jump over here. So this is the main ArcGIS Online interface. It took a minute, so I pre-exported that information. But as you can see over here in the file content, it kind of automatically appeared under these business analyst folders. And so if you go to business analyst, my maps, here is the example map that I exported. This is great because, once you have a web map, this can now be used with field apps as well. So you could go straight to using this in Collector or ESRI field maps if you're interested. We can also go in here to the feature layer. So we've got a feature layer here and we can export this. So if we do need to get this to a shapefile or file geodatabase, if you wanted to try to kind of tie this data into another app or get it down to desktop for any sort of other analysis, this is how you can do that. And you can also tie um, a hosted feature layer like this can be tied into Survey 123, that app. And so you can auto generate forms that will be tied to each of these kind of pre-existing points in your layer. Although that did remind me, I forgot to show one thing. When you do go in to do this export button, you'll want to click this export map layers to hosted feature service, that check mark. That is how you get here to what I'm showing you. But I think I'll just hop into the web map for a moment. Okay, so now we are in general ArcGIS Online. I mean, very similar. We're still looking at a map interface, but now we just have additional functionality. There's all kinds of additional features that we can utilize in ArcGIS Online. One thing I like to do for my teams is there's a script you can run to embed a Street View, Google Street View link to each of these points. So if you were doing desktop review and wanted to see whether or not the business was real or just take a look at the street view, that can be incorporated. As I was mentioning, we can take this straight to a collector app, or these can be tied into Survey 123. So all sorts of other features that are helpful. And yeah, so I think that is probably everything that I wanted to cover for just getting started with your source control inventory using this app, and hope it was helpful.